So shall we get started?
Yes. Hi, Nirmali.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi,
Thank you.
everyone.
It's on time. Hi, everybody.
A very good evening to all of you out there as well. Welcome to this webinar organized by Seekers in partnership with Chokolaate magazine. The topic for today is early childhood education, and to keep this discussion very timely, we will be relating this topic to the present situation. So to talk about this topic, we have a panel of 4 professionals with us today. Our very first panelist is Vanessa Van Gramberg. She is a special educator, she is a psychologist, and she's also a lecturer in education and psychology. A very good evening to you, Vanessa.
Good evening.
And our second panelist is Nalika Unantenna. She is the regional head of the app content of the Asian Parent. A warm welcome to you, Nalika.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Our third panelist is Nirmali Wickremasinghe. She is the consultant for Gateway Group of Educational Institutes. A warm welcome to you, Mrs. Wickremasinghe.
Hi.
And our fourth panelist for today is Shanthi Wijesinghe. She's a resource person for Seekers Research. A very good evening to you as well, Mrs. Wijesinghe. Okay, so that's the panel for today. And for those of you who are watching us right now, if you do have any questions that you would like to ask our panel today, feel free to send them in. Our panel would be happy to answer them for you. So we'll tackle those questions towards the end. But to get started, we have 2 main rounds of questions. Without further ado, let's get started with our first round. Mrs. Wickremasinghe, I'd like to start off this webinar with you. Before we talk about different areas of early childhood education, could you brief and introduce this topic? What is early childhood education exactly?
I think if you're going to define early childhood, I would say it would be from birth to 8 years. That would be early childhood. Of course, it's a progressive thing. And the age of a child also sometimes, although we stipulate and say, school going age is 5 years, primary is up to this, middle school is up, the child's mental age also changes slightly. But roughly speaking, you would say 1 year to 8 years. So 1 year to 8, I mean from birth to 8 years. So birth to 8 years would mean a huge learning period for a child is. It is a period in which there is such a lot of learning, we don't even realize that that learning has taken place. I mean, a child learns to raise her head, to sit down, to crawl, to stand, to walk, to start talking, vocabulary comes in. We don't learn all that in a whole lifetime. So early childhood is so important. And up until recently, actually, when we were children and even when my children were small, we were not in a digital world at all. We were in a real world where children learn through observation and totally activity-based learning. But we cannot go away from the fact that in today's world, we are in a digital world. So we have to add that into our early childhood education systems as well, because it would be unrealistic if we don't. Although the main learning in early childhood would be through the environment the child is in, through observation, and through what the child actually learns from around the child. But around the child is a whole lot of digital devices, right? So they are now called digital natives. Children are called digital natives. They are also known as the alpha generation that will be going into colleges in 2030. So if we are going to talk about early childhood education now, we would have to, apart from the early childhood education that we spoke about, the sensorial education, the observing, and the activity, total activity-based education, we would have to add the digital education as well. So, I hope I've answered the question. Is there anything else you like to do? So I would say it's 1 to 8 years where the child would learn on in both areas.
All right. Okay.
Sensorial, that is the visual, the auditory, the touch and feel, the smell, all that. And now with in the digital world, with all the devices connected with digital learning. Okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Mrs. Wickremasinghe, for that introduction. Just a humble request to all our panelists here. If you could mute yourself when another panelist is speaking, that will be great, because or else we have a little bit of a sound issue. It's not quite clear. Thank you. All right. Okay. So my next question is for Mrs. Wijesinghe. As soon as the lockdown began, pretty much all educational institutes moved into online platforms. So has it been the same with Seekers Montessori as well, Mrs. Wijesinghe? And if so, what are the different techniques and what are the different activities that Seekers has been using to conduct these online classes for preschoolers? Mrs. Wijesinghe, you're muted now. You'll have to switch on the audio.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, perfect.
So, we are a research organization more than a Montessori school. Montessori is just one aspect of Seekers. When we went into lockdown, the curfew lockdown situation, I couldn't expect 30 homes to hone in on my videos at one time. I didn't know what they were up to, whether they were attending to their children or home or office. And this is the thing that brought me some knowledge on this particular situation, where we uploaded or customized videos according to the ages of children and the activities that they had done for the last 1 or 2 years. So we had the information with us, and all we had to do was to connect the dots and see that every age group had a video at whatever time the parents were convenient to log in and watch that video. And so it was on, mainly it was on the senses, the sense development, whatever I take home. And then we planned the lessons online and delivered to the board. They would have the access. They could have gone 9:30 in the night, and maybe the next day they were able to plan out their programs. So I didn't stress them out with Zoom. I didn't stress them out with any, because I know this the young parents at home, we are giving them so much of stress with schoolwork and stuff like that. And we are talking about under 6. And it is not easy for a parent to sit down with a child and see that they follow the teacher's advice or instructions. So this is what we did. We customized videos according to the need, according to the capability, and the strength and the weakness of the child. So if a child was weak, we wanted to make him strong. Like, for example, the sense education of smell. What do you have in your kitchen to smell? So I got my spice rack out, and I just asked the parents to kind of get the children to start smelling what was in this on the spice rack, so that the sense building was part of their development. And when they came back, now on the 1st of June, we opened it out to parents, and parents said it was very successful for them. Of course, parents have to put time and a little more energy than usual, so that they would be able to give us evaluation, because we designed COVID-19 evaluations where parents were concerned, where parents had to evaluate their child on the activities that we gave them on the program. So if the child was having an attention span of 1 minute or 3 minutes, they could just tick that. So it was a simple, hands-on A4 sheet of paper that we did for April and May. And now that we are in June, we are a little more organized on this, so that we don't know, we might have to go till September.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Wijesinghe, for that. Since Mrs. Wijesinghe, since you spoke about seekers, Mrs. Wickremasinghe, I'd also like to know how Gateway conducted their online lessons, and how have the kids been faring in it? How has it been so far for Gateway? Mrs. Wickremasinghe, you have to unmute yourself. You're muted. We can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
We have gone along with a platform called Class Dojo, which has been a very, very successful platform. It's very activity based, and the teachers are constantly communicating with parents as well. And the children also have got very excited over this whole thing. At their convenience, they can do the work that is sent, and they make portfolios and things like that, which are also very exciting. But Gateway is a Microsoft, what is known as a Microsoft
Teams.
Yes,
It's
Microsoft Teams, and they're also leaders in it. They are known as a showcase tool. So they have their lead, the Microsoft, they are an expert. So they also have the children meeting in teams sometimes, right? So that they can communicate, children can communicate with each other, because we firmly believe that that is very, very necessary for children. So you find them chatting to each other and things like that also on the days that they meet each other. But Class Dojo, we find, is a very child-friendly platform where you have the icons are like the monsters, and they can change the icons, and they have been enjoying themselves hugely during this time, and you can see from the portfolio that a lot has been done. But having said that, as Shanthi said, parents also have to be very involved with a lot of the stuff. And when we say COVID, we have to also understand that the parents have also, I think, we have discussed, actually when we discuss this topic, we have to look at the whole mental framework of the parents at this time. Because for all of us, this has been a huge learning curve, right? And there has been fear, there's been fear for the children, exposure, when are we ever going to be able to expose them? Jobs, salaries, in some cases getting half, people losing jobs. So the parents themselves have been under a lot of stress. So under these circumstances, when they have to also supervise the learning, I think education is also have to be very, very vigilant about that, and maybe give some guidance to the parents on all of this as well, because I think they really need guidance. As I said, one of the tools that parents do use are the digital platforms. So they need some guidance on how to use them as well, right? Because these children are digital natives. They know to use the iPad and the smartphone better than the parents. They are born with that in their hand. And they are not totally bad things. So we need to use guidance. We need to be able to give those for a time only. We need to look at the time period that is healthy. They shouldn't be watching those beyond, say, in the evening beyond a certain time, because that will interrupt their sleep patterns. They should not get screen addiction. It should not be a situation where they cannot leave that instrument. Sometimes it is convenient for parents to give it to them because the mother has to now play several roles, mother and father both sometimes, because they have to do their job online, which they had to do before. I mean, after some time, they all started working online. Sometimes their jobs were, they were not sure whether they were going to have their jobs for much longer, so there was all that worry. Then they had to manage the children, plus if they had anybody coming to help them at work, at home, that had stopped, so they had to also be the cook and the nanny and all of that. So through all of this background, the children also had to be taught their skills, and I think that situation, as Shanthi said, the smells, helping the mother in the kitchen, helping with the skills connected, all that should have come in with the early childhood and COVID, where there could have been bonding at every point with the parents while they learn through the sensorial platforms which they were being exposed to, with the digital also coming in with the aid of the institutions. Now I know with Class Dojo that Gateway implemented, there was a lot of that came in where the children also could do things on their own and enjoy.
All right, okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Wickremasinghe. Since you brought up the involvement and the support of the parents and the problems they have encountered during this time in managing online classes at home, and then household work and jobs on the other hand, I'd like to move into Nalika. Your opinions and experiences are coming in from a parent's perspective. So if you could add in more to what Mrs. Wickremasinghe said, what kind of challenges do you think parents of preschoolers as well as primary school students might have faced during this time, and what kind of solutions could you suggest to them?
Yeah, so for me personally, me and my husband, we do not give our kids that much screen time at all. It's very controlled. So the biggest challenge of online education after the COVID situation happened was that now suddenly I have two kids. They're 8 and 10 years old. And suddenly, they had all this access to, I mean, one is on a phone, one is on a laptop, one is on a laptop and a phone, he needs the phone for video. So it was suddenly all this exposure to digital media, which they had not had before. And for them, it was like, all their Christmases had come at once, because they didn't know how to handle this sudden, this sudden increase in screen time that they had. So for me, that was one of the biggest challenges, and also I work from home. My husband works from home. We're all digitally connected. I mean, our work is such that we have to be connected online. So it was very challenging having to be in all, a million places at the same time, literally. And then, of course, there's no help at home. During the lockdown period. So like Mrs. Wickremasinghe was saying, the cooking has to happen, the cleaning has to happen, all of that, the laundry, and just managing, fitting in the kids, the kids' timetables into that, monitoring them, and also getting our work done I think it was quite a challenge. But we've all got used to it now. And see, the other issue is I'm not a helicopter parent. I don't like to hover over my kids when they do their schoolwork. So so when they started their online classes, right, I explained to them, okay, this is how your classes are going to be happening. They go to Gateway, by the way, both of them, right? And I explained to them, and I said, you need to check in, you need to listen to your teacher. But again, and I think this is true for a lot of parents, I mean, it's a brand new experience for the kids as well, even if they had exposure or had access to screen time before this whole COVID period, because this is a different setting, a different kind of exposure now to screen time. It's not, it's not fun all the time. It's not fun and games. They have to focus. They have to listen. They have homework. They have to write certain things. So yeah, that was I think a very long period of adjustment. And the challenge for me was just just making sure that the kids were doing what they needed to do online. And for me, as also someone who needed to get my work done, making sure that was getting done. So even if it meant staying up till late and catching up on my work, well, you know what to do, it had to be done. And then yeah, just waking up really early, getting the food, the lunches sorted, the dinners sorted. So it was a lot of multitasking, much more than I would normally do, and my husband as well. I mean, both of us pitch into the household chores, and it was also getting the kids involved as well. I think we're in a good place now in terms of, you know, that kind of understanding that they can't abuse the system that they have at the moment of, you know, having all this access to digital media. So they understand that, they're old enough to understand. And another challenge that I think a lot of parents have faced is just the lack of kids being able to go out, meet their friends, that kind of one-to-one exposure, that one-to-one, you know, thing that they get when they go to school, right? So I think it was really tough for my kids. I mean, they have each other, but you know, it's a lot of fighting. They play with each other, then they fight, then they play again. So I think they've really got sick of each other's company, and they're really missing their friends. So again, there was a lot of explaining to do initially, you know, just telling them in very age appropriate ways what is going on in the world and why they cannot go to school, and what has happened, you know, that it's not just something that has happened to us here in Sri Lanka, that it's a global, you know, issue, and this is how it is. And it was a lot of information for young, small, immature minds to take in. But again, I think it's how you present that information to your kids based on their age and level of understanding, you know, not giving them too much information or too complex information. And so they understand now. They understand it's a virus. They understand that we cannot go out because of XYZ reasons. And they understand why they cannot meet their friends. So that was sorted through a lot of talking and a lot of explanation. And of course, there's the lack of physical activity, because I mean, at school, they run about, they have their recess, you know, their break. They have after school activities, you know, both of them do soccer after school, they love it. And here they are now, you know, sitting in front of their laptop. And so for us, it was actively getting them to get up, move about, and after classes stopped, you know, go outside, run about a bit, jump up. And also I'm grateful to the school that they've continued their PE classes through this whole period. So it's really cute to see the kids, you know, kind of jumping up and down and crawling on the ground and going through obstacle courses. So the school has been great with that, just getting them to move and not sit in one place. And also, you know, just having again, this is where I think the school has done a great job in making sure that the kids are stimulated and that they've kind of adapted their syllabus, I think, to include more arts and craft, more activities that the kids can actually, very hands-on. It's actually very hands-on for the kids. So yeah, so a lot of challenges. And of course, I think the biggest challenge for us now is getting the kids ready to go back to school. Because, I mean, it's not going to be like this forever. You know, schools will open, the school will reopen, you know, within the next couple of months. So then, again, as Mrs. Wickremasinghe was saying, it's that, you know, the range of fears that we as parents have now thinking about the switch, going back to this school environment, but in a post-COVID situation where we have to worry about masks, we have to worry about, you know, face protectors, hygiene, all of that. And for me as a parent, I try not to project too much into the future and stress myself. So I think through the whole COVID period, it's just been taking every day as it has come, and just tackling the challenges for that day, for that week, and then just moving past like that. So I think as the school reopening time gets closer, then I'd probably start worrying a little bit more about it. But for the moment, we're good as parents. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that, Nalika. I'd like to move on to Vanessa. Vanessa, when we spoke over the phone, like about, I think 2 days ago, you mentioned play as a very important aspect in early childhood education. And Nalika brought this up as well, because of the online classes that have been going on so much, kids really haven't got much time to go out there and play. But play is a very important aspect in, especially in early childhood education, because it helps the kid grow in many ways. Could you talk to us about the importance of play? And since kids are at home, they do have some extra time at home. So how can they use this? How can parents, with the parents' involvement, how can they direct their kids more towards play?
Yes. So just like you mentioned, while play is a very integral, a very vital part of early childhood development, it is at the same time turning out to be quite a neglected area in early childhood education. It's very sad to say that. And the reason for this is not only in Sri Lanka, but all over the world, what we see is, with the hurried lifestyle and so much of demands placed on parents as well as on kids, play tends to become neglected, right? And it has come to a position where sometimes even as therapists, when we recommend that children be given the time to engage in play, parents look at you like so much to say, what are you suggesting? That is the typical look you get, right? Because they're so focused on academic learning. But what they fail to realize is all the skills that a child needs to progress academically originally developed through play, right? So let me just illustrate this with an example. Okay, this was a bit of play that I tried with a 2-year-old, almost 2-year-old, right? And I still remember when I introduced him to water play, I just gave him a big basin full of water and a cup and just taught him how to just mess around with water, fill the cup with water, pour it into another bowl, right? And it was very interesting to see how the moment a little bit of water actually fell on the ground, it spilled on the ground, he takes this, I had given him a spoon also. He takes the spoon and drags it along the ground to see whether he could actually collect the water in there. And he figured that that doesn't work. So now those kind of skills are things that the child learns through experience, because play helps the child explore the environment. They come up with different solutions to problems, right? And these kind of things we can't actually technically teach them through a book. But when they move into higher grades, they're expected to know these skills, right? I hope I'm making myself clear, right? So
yeah, very clear.
Right. So what happens is that when you encourage your child to engage in a lot of hands-on play, it not only just lets them have a fun time, but what we don't see is that their cognitive skills, meaning their thinking skills, problem solving skills, even their social interaction, and especially as Nalika said, she has 2 kids, right? And there are a lot of fights that go on also during play. So they learn how to adjust with situations. They learn to compromise, regulate their emotions, right? All of which doesn't happen in normal book learning. It doesn't happen by just trying to teach the child, right? So I think during lockdown, it's an ideal time because, parents are at home with kids. And this is an ideal time to just sit down and spend quality play time. Now, I don't mean that you need to, just bombard in and just take over their play and have a structured routine, not that. But think about back when you were a child, how did you play? Right? I think you were fortunate to have maybe a non-digital kind of childhood, right? Where we were exposed to a lot of hands-on toys, playing with friends. right? So play to be most beneficial is done in a very spontaneous manner, but we could always join in, engage with the child, because that also helps in parent-child bonding. It helps the parent understand the child's perspective of the world, right? And especially, okay, I work mainly with children with special needs, and some of them are non-verbal. They cannot tell us, okay, I feel sad today. They cannot express their frustrations. But the moment we put them in a situation where they're able to play, we just put them with some toys. Based on the way they play, the way they interact, we could actually understand what the child is going through. So it gives us a good perspective of, understanding how does the child view situations, how does the child view the world, right? And I think this is a great opportunity, like where parents actually can sit down, engage with them, even teach them a few skills through play, right? I know it takes a lot of creativity, it takes a lot of time, but it's also a lot of fun. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, Vanessa, thank you very much. Mrs. Wijesinghe, if you could also add in some points to that. Yeah, with your experience so far, what do you think? Mrs. Wijesinghe, you're muted.
Sorry.
I can't hear you. Yes. Hello? Hello? Mrs. Wijesinghe, you're still muted. I can see the red color. All right, now it should be okay.
Well, this is one thing that we must understand as educators, as parents, as a community, that each parent cannot function at the same level. When we want work done with the children, each parent has her or his level. Everyone is not at the same level of understanding his or her child. This is the first time, I think, in many, many, many years, maybe in the child's life, in the parent's life as well, that they have for just that time in the either. But this is one time that the parents child is
Mrs. Wijesinghe, we have a problem hearing you. Hello, are you there with us? Can you hear us?
Yes. Yes. I think I got disconnected. Something happened with,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
some connection issues. That's okay.
When we want parents to understand the power of play, parents it's in school that he has a problem. So now the parents are now understanding maybe what the teacher to take into pinch of salt, but definitely take into consideration, because the child has has planned something different path for the child. And that has been a difficult road sometimes to take where children are concerned. For example, parents want them to write. They want them to write 3 or 3.5. Now, this is not okay. Why can't you write? I'm telling you to write. Why can't you write? Now, if a teacher, child, the parent would definitely get on the wrong track and say, you are annoying my child. This is child abuse to that extent. But in a situation where they are locked down with their force, then comes into if the parent has to create various means and forms of play to facilitate what the school has given them to do. I understand what Vanessa is saying. I'm very happy Nalika has connected with her 2 children and the school, and it has worked out for them. But it's not like that for everyone. This webinar is very important for people who must understand that every child cannot function the way the other child functions, because each mother, each father, each grandparent has different agendas. They have different things to do. They want the child to do different things. They're pulling the child in so many ways that sometimes when I talk to parents, I said, what do you expect from the child? Oh, I want to make him the best in whatever he does. What is the best? What career? He's already chosen a career path for his child. Now it's time for him to sit down, understand, this is not the career I'm planning for my child. This is not the way he's going. He still can't add 4 plus 3. So you give him activities to do, you give him play stuff to do. Still, the child is not getting 4 plus 3. Now the parent is getting way beyond agitated. The parent is calling us up and saying, you know, I don't know what you all are doing, but you know, when I teach him, he's not learning. So every parent is functioning at, I would say, 100% stress levels. That stress should not be given to the child. That stress should be handled by the parent through some means of de-stressing, early morning de-stressing, during the day, and because the children are getting stressed out by lots of things that the parents are doing. Play, how long can we go with play? What kind of play? Do they know how to play? You ask a dad, or you ask him, mainly dads actually, I'm sorry about this, but you ask him, what kind of play? Oh, I walk with him. Yes, you walk with him. It's very important that you walk with him and get all those multisensory and motor skills running. But what do you talk to him about? What do you talk to your child about? I talk to him about the aeroplanes, and when the aeroplanes, no, you talk to him about the mundane things. Why is this flower pink? Or why is this flower orange? How did it come to be? And then maybe take a pot or something like that and plant something. It doesn't matter, it can be a weed. So practical power of play is very important for parents to understand the practical power of play at home. We cannot have plastic, I mean, I'm sure there are parents who have lots of toys that are stacked to the roof, which are sometimes not even coming out of those packages. But that is not what the child wants. The child wants practical, hands-on, dirty, down-to-earth activities where he can get his hands dirty. And if you watch the new mothers, the new parents, they don't want the children to get dirty. They don't want any dirt on their clothes. I mean, lots of multinationals are selling detergents. So why not use them and get the children dirty, up and running? Even if the children live in small apartments, it's important for the child for the space to be cleared so that the child can have the access, traffic-free access to play.
All right, okay. Thank you very much, Mrs. Wijesinghe, for that. All right, so that was the first round of questions, and I'd like to move into the second round of questions. Vanessa, I'd like to start off this round with you. Parents, especially working parents, just like the other panelists mentioned, they hardly have time to interact with their child. But in that sense, the past 2 months of lockdown has been an absolute blessing because it has given a lot of time for the parents to spend time with their children. Now, during this period, there can be certain situations where certain parents have come to notice certain abnormal or atypical behavioral patterns in certain children. Behavioral patterns they never noticed before because they hardly had the time. But now that they've spent time with their children, they could possibly come across abnormal or atypical behavioral patterns. So I'd like to change this discussion towards a very important area, which is special education, a topic suggested by you yourself. Could you explain to all the parents out there, how can they detect disabilities at a very young age?
Yes, this is actually a very important topic, and it's a topic that is discussed worldwide because we're focusing a lot on early identification because very honestly, the rates in our country, it's increasing, right? Not only in our country, but we say the scenario worldwide, right? So I would like to stress on the fact that when it comes to early childhood education, as Nirmali mentioned, okay, 1 to 5 years or 8 years. Now, this is the period that brain development is at its max, right? Optimal development happens during this period, and that is why we call it a very crucial period in the life of a child. So having said that, this is why we stress on the early intervention. So the moment I will be going into what are the problematic, the red flags or the signs that you would see in a situation like this, right? So because again, because this is a crucial period, and if we identify during the early years of a child, there is quite a lot that we could do. And in some cases, we have even seen up to even over about 95% recovery in some cases when early intervention is sought, right? So what I would do is, because special education is a vast topic, and if I were going to cover it, it would take many months or many, right? Even it would turn into years. So what I did was I just picked on I think I will talk about what is like the type of impairments that you don't see from the outside. Okay, the reason I picked it was because this is not identified ideally at birth. Right now, if you take something like Down syndrome, okay, at birth it's identified. So there's much parents would go, they would seek help.
Exactly.
But if you take conditions like a learning disability or even autism, sometimes it's not very evident. And the thing about this period of 1 to 5 is that sometimes we do see certain signs. Yes, they'll be too young for a diagnosis, but it is important that the moment we notice these signs that we start remediating, we take action so that the issue wouldn't get worse, right? So I would like to actually tell the parents at this point, like, don't panic because there is help available. I know it's very distressing for a parent to accept, okay, my child could be having a learning disability. But remember, if you seek help early, right, the better chances are that your child will be able to adjust with the situation, right? So if you look at learning disabilities, well, I would just list out a couple of symptoms that would be problematic for children who are facing learning issues, right? So this is before grade 1 we're looking at. So if they have problems hearing sounds in words, right, or identifying letters or the sounds of the alphabet, learning numbers and their value. Now, when I say learning, it doesn't mean that as soon as you introduce the letter, they take time to pick up. No, I'm talking about you keep repeating it time after time after time, and you do it in numerous ways, and still they're not getting it, right? So I'm talking about, despite a lot of repetition and all, that still they have issues processing it, right? And trouble remembering shapes, sometimes even colors, letters, right? Difficulties in reading simple 3-letter words without pictures. Okay, so these are usually the red flags that we see. And be something like a belt, and they might go this, right, without knowing the correct word for it, or they might use a substitute word for it, right? So when you see difficulties in pronouncing, difficulties in understanding instructions, there are times when you ask children questions, they'll repeat the question back to you, right? When it happens many times, right, it means that the child cannot understand what you are saying, right? So because of that, it's very important that these are noted. And in the case of something like even autism, right, we always look for, okay, how well does the child interact with other children, with other people whom he might not even be familiar with, right? So sometimes kids with autism, the easy, I mean, in very obvious situations, you wouldn't find them interacting. They would be totally to themselves, preoccupied with not just a toy, but a part of a toy, right? So those are like very obvious symptoms. But you would also get the very mild kind of symptoms where you would see minimal interaction, right? Them just not connecting, not understanding emotions, which are also things that we need to pay attention to. So even find that, they would love. If you're taking a particular route to the supermarket, any diversion from that route would bring about a tantrum. If they go to school, they would want a particular order of things. If they have dancing now, music then, it's hard you swap the order, there's a tantrum. They can't deal with the change, right? Then limited interests, even things like repetitive behaviors where they might be hand clapping, or you might find them that they are totally fixed on one particular toy, might be something very soft or something that makes them feel good. They would want to keep it in their hands, right? So along with that would also be, there would be speech difficulties. So I know it's quite a long list and I cannot cover everything, but yeah, but if you are seeing, I mean, a couple of these symptoms, not I mean, you don't have to see all the symptoms, and you don't have to panic by seeing just one thing, but it's always good to go and get an opinion. And if there are issues like this, the best thing you could do is either get the child assessed by a speech and language pathologist, or else you could even go to a psychologist or even a pediatrician, and they will be able to assess and tell you whether it's anything that you need to be concerned about, or whether it is part of typical behavior of a child.
Right.
I hope I
Thank you. Yes, I know it's a very vast topic. You can't hardly cover it within just a few minutes. But thank you very much for picking certain disabilities and highlighting the symptoms. That makes it pretty easy for those of you who are listening right now. Mrs. Wijesinghe, I'd like to come back to you. in the same context.
Actually, I have
Yes. Mrs.
I have a
Wijesinghe is
question.
muted.
Yeah.
Okay, we can hear you now. You can go ahead. It's muted. It's still muted. It's all right now. Yes.
I have a question for Vanessa. When you say pediatricians and when you say test, go to a particular, you need to get a diagnosis or testing done, how would parents choose that?
Yes, usually,
I know the answer, but I just want to know the parents. I want the parents to know this because there are so many out there. Now, I did learning difficulties in 1997. And at that time, people told me there's nothing like this. Called learning disabilities. This is coming from outside. It's coming from, but now, and every time we meet children with various dysfunctions or disabilities or something that is bothering us as educators, the answer is it will be all right. He's still small, or she's still small. So mainly of facts. Now, how do you correct this? Do you correct it? And where do parents go for help? Because there are so many out there waiting to diagnose, and to sometimes I think they use the gullibility factor. Oh, your child doesn't know A or C, he doesn't know to write or read. So he has a learning difficulty. Now, we know that the child does not have a learning difficulty. It's just that the child has to be taught in another way, because every child does not learn the same way. You can't put them in a straitjacket, and you can't put them in a group and say, everybody learn A today. They're not going to learn A today at all. So if there are children in these groups, and how would parents know where to go?
yes. So I think the first step to that is also identifying that yes, a problem exists, and yes, when I must elaborate a little more. When I say go to a pediatrician, there are specialized pediatricians who are familiar with learning disabilities and childhood disorders. So we call them developmental pediatricians or community pediatricians. Few number in Sri Lanka, but they are there, right? And even if you're seeking a psychologist, make sure that it is a child and adolescent psychologist, right? And like I said, okay, get them right. You get child and adolescent psychologists in Sri Lanka who handle these kind of cases. Right? I hope I answered your question because I couldn't hear half of what you said actually because it was breaking
Oh, I'm
up.
sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I just wanted to know how parents would know. How would parents know where to go when there are difficulties in their children and they don't want to accept what the teacher says or what the school says? But there are lots of parents like this. They don't want to accept. They're totally in denial of the fact that my child may have a problem. And they're also in denial of the fact that my child is fine. The teacher is wrong.
Yeah.
So early childhood is a very important stage where we do early intervention, like you said. Early intervention is a very specialized area that we do at Seekers as well, because we want the parents to nip it in the bud. We can't nip it in the bud at 15. We have to look at the early stages. If we don't nip, if we don't find that at the early stages, this is all wrong. The best tuition class in Sri Lanka won't be able to help you.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
the early stages between 0, Nirmali said 0 to 8. In Sri Lanka, I would give another 2 years because we love our children to be with us, even if they're 40, right? Basically, they are children, so they can live at home. So early childhood is a very special area where we want the children, but we can't, we won't, because we have so many things in our, so many demarcations in our, we are in denial, parents are in denial. Number 2, they don't trust the teachers.
Yes.
Number 3, school is mostly at fault. So these are the community problems that we have. And it's the whole purpose of this is to educate parents to accept the fact that your child is not going to grade 1 to learn 1 to 100. Your child is not going to read 3-letter words off like that. He's not the same as the next child. Your child is unique. Your child is different. Maybe he will learn 3 letters. That's such a problem. Is that such an issue? Don't we want to be kind-hearted and loving to their grandparents and be family people? Is it so important for them to read and write and do and know where every country in the world is and what the flags are of the countries? Yes, it's important. I'm not undermining that. It is important, but there's an age and a stage to learn, and there's a time and a limit where we can't give them adequate information. So if a child can do, and what does a teacher do? That's what is enough for me anymore. Can Nalika hear me?
Mrs. Wijesinghe, we lost you. There's a bit of a connection issue. We lost you. Could you repeat the question once again?
The question is for Nalika, actually.
Yes, I can.
When your children, when your children say, "Mama, it's enough for me. I can't do any more," what do? And you know that they have to do it.
I tell them to stop, take a break, do it later. You know, I can't force them to do something that they are telling me they don't want to do right now. You know, the world isn't going to come to an end if they don't do it right now. So yeah, I tell them to do it when they're ready. See, I'd like to just address a couple of things that you were talking about, Shanthi, from a parent's point of view, right? One of the things that you touched on was that it's very difficult for parents to accept if their kid or if their child has a learning issue. And I think part of this is to do still with the fact that there's a lot of stigma around health problems, around mental health problems, and we saw it during the COVID, the peak of the COVID season as well, right? With this whole, you know, body of stigma around people also getting COVID, and it became a problem. So when we talk about, I think, learning issues, mental health issues, it's very hard for parents to break that barrier because they feel parents are judged in almost everything that they do, right? And this is just one other area that they are fearful that they will be judged. So I think there needs to be a shift in the way that the parents think, and as well as when I say a shift, That is, they need to understand that it's all right to get help. It's all right to accept that your child needs help in certain areas, right? And at the same time, educators, I think they also have a role, educators and administrators and also health professionals, to get the message out there that, you know, there's nothing wrong with accepting that you have a problem or that your child has a problem, and that we are here to help and we are here to guide you. And these are the, you know, the people that you can go to, or these are the numbers that you can call. So that's one of the that's one of the things, Shanthi, that you were talking about. And then the other thing I think you touched on is this whole expectation that parents have from their children, that in grade 1, you know, they can read an encyclopedia or they can count up to 500. And there's a lot of competition among parents. There's a lot of competition among parents to.
Now, why is that?
I think
is that?
there are quite a few reasons. I mean, I think one of the reasons, and this is especially so, probably more so in the government school section, but kids are required to learn to know certain things, to, you know, to get into grade 1, right? I mean, they're expected to.
I can see Nirmali shaking her head. So I don't know whether
Would you like to add
she's
something?
I know this because
saying,
I've had parents reaching out to me and saying, "Oh my gosh, you know, my kid needs to get into grade 1 of this school, that school. Are they going to be tested? I've heard they're going to be tested. You know, if they can't speak, or sorry, if they can't write, if they can't count up to whatever, they're going to not be admitted." So there's this anxiety in parents, especially in.
Do you realize? Do you realize that education is a business now?
Well, yeah, it's partly to do with that also, isn't it? I mean, I think the core of
because they are putting so much pressure. Nirmali probably can come in this. I'm not sure about Gateway, but I know lots of other schools that they put so much pressure on the child.
Can I speak?
And there, you have to write three-letter words.
Mrs. Wickremasinghe, did you? I think Mrs. Wijesinghe, you got stuck, and Mrs. Wickremasinghe tried to come in. Hello, Mrs. Wijesinghe, could you repeat your question?
Oh, I'm sorry. So what I want to ask, what I want
Mrs. Wijesinghe, if you can hear us,
in different.
You're getting stuck, so the question is not very clear. Is there a way that you can maybe type and send it to? Hello.
Hang on. Is that better?
Mrs.
Is that better?
Do you hear?
She's on mute.
Yeah, Mrs. Wickremasinghe, could you also unmute yourself so that it'll be easier for us to communicate? You can unmute yourself.
Unmute. Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Oh, you're right.
Can I just come in a little bit?
Right. So,
I think it's very necessary that the teachers are also aware of when they should actually get help for a child, and where there can be a lot of dialogue between the teacher and the parent before they actually suggest that they go to A, B, C, and D to go to the pediatrician or the psychologist. I think this is a very, very sensitive area, and it is very difficult for parents to understand that maybe their child is a little different. So I think the teachers have a big role to play in this whole setup, where they observe the child for a long time. And I also believe that you do not observe them in this massive competitive scenario where they are, as Shanthi said, the parents expect them to read, write, add, subtract, divide before they can even talk sometimes. Before they can go to school, before they are 5 years old, which is the school going age in this country, parents expect them when they send them to nursery school, and I feel very sorry for the preschoolers that have to function under this type of stress, because the children are not ready to add, subtract, and divide, and it's not necessary to do that at that age. So what happens is there's such a stressful curriculum that goes on sometimes, with the parents wanting them to read that, read Oliver Twist if they can in preschool, that there's a huge confusion in the teachers as well as to whether these children are actually a little slow. I think Vanessa can feed us on this. Whether the children are really, and I don't like to use the word slow, the children are a little different. And some children do take a little longer than others. So, the play platform is so important. I think water play, I love mud kitchens. I think children should be bathed in mud and bathed in paint and, just sent to the garden. They should have spot books. They should just look at the trees, look at the new leaves, the old leaves, understand so much of what is around them. And I think the real village child goes to school at 5 years. That's why I shook my head when you said government schools. There are government schools and government schools. Maybe the government schools that are highly in demand, I don't know about their entrance examinations. But I think village children actually are exposed to a lot more natural environment than our children, who are sent sometimes to places where the parents, I think Shanthi will totally agree with me, where the parents are expecting them to read and write and do everything that they have to do before they are 8 years old. And actually, a lot of those skills that they're expecting children to imbibe and perform are really things they have to do after they're 8 years old. Because as I said, they are learning so many skills at this age. You don't need to push them like that. I can give them messy play, let them poke their hands into jelly, let them help you to cook, let them even, as long as they don't burn themselves, mess with the vegetables, touch and feel and learn. Touch a carrot, without teaching the child through the books all the time. So there's so much learning that can go on without this going on teaching them. And I think there's a huge mix-up taking place now, because you are trying to identify the learning difficulties or the learning assessments with the teaching flaws as well that are going on. So I think there's going to be a lot more observation going on. And I think during this COVID period, I think what all parents should have striven to do, although it would have been really difficult, as I said, in most cases, because parents were having to multitask and do so many things. And I'm sure, if we are very realistic, children running about, you can't get out, the whole atmosphere gets tense sometimes, the child might throw a tantrum, you might throw a bigger tantrum, those are the realistic situations that happen. So then you've got to see that you don't escalate into something worse with the child. You need to, put the boundaries on the child and put the boundaries on yourself, right? So we are in a situation where by expecting too much from our children too early, and for what? And for what? Is the world today what it was 20 years ago? It's so different. So as I said, as children, did we ever see a world like this? We didn't. When I was a child of 6 to 8 years, we didn't even have television, right? So we can't envisage what is going to be the way the world is developing. So there is no need for all this tension. And I think it's up to psychologist Vanessa, I think it's up to people like you to tell them, to make the parents aware that they don't need to be all this tense stuff about how much the children are going to learn before they're 5 years old. Because now even with the, actually I just took this down, because even with this with the technology that has happened and with all this help our kids, you know, they are getting very vigilant that the social and emotional learning must take a big place in the life of these children. The social and emotional learning must take a big place. So that's why stories with good habits, with empathy, love of animals, pet shows, you know, bringing in pets to school, right? Children thinking stories out with a lot of empathy. You know, you need to go into all of these. And I think teachers, I think Vanessa, you have a big part to play with teachers. Teachers have to understand how to detect these early learning issues, because I think the teachers are also totally at sea with curriculum, the curricula that they have to cover. They are being pushed to get the children to learn to read, write, and, you know, 3-letter words, and I know 4-letter words, 5-letter words, I don't know all of the alphabet, single alphabet, English alphabet, you name it, before they are 5 years old. So I think educators per se have to play a part in educating young parents who think that they are doing the right thing. You can't blame them, because they want the best for their children. They want the best for their children, and they think that this is the way to go. But I'm sure if people who understand talk to them, or there are platforms such as this, if you can reach out to many people, where they are aware that anxiety needs to be removed. That the children must play, have a lot of fun, right? Dirty themselves, observe, such a lot of observation. Parents must understand they need to be role models, that they shouldn't be screaming at each other because they are best friends. You know, all those things also have happened during COVID. So since we are talking about COVID, I think we need to, I think Nalika, you've had a very sort of almost idealist, idyllic home, but your type of home may not be the usual. You know? So you really need to be focused on the fact that with all the stressors that are around, sometimes the early childhood, the children are forgotten, right? And the easiest thing is to turn on the smartphone and say, here, have a look at this one silly cartoon. I mean, even those should be guided. They
Exactly.
should be supervised. They should be for a little time, the time period. I mean, I don't think you're going to ever go into a world where they're not going to want to watch Peppa Pig, you know. And I mean, that's not going to happen.
That's unreal. That's true. That's unreal. Yes.
That's unreal. You can control it. As Nalika said, they controlled it, but now the floodgates have opened. You can't control it anymore. I mean, the videos are being shown on online teaching, and you have to also, because you can't do online teaching the way you did teaching in the classroom. You've got to attract the child's attention. So it's a whole new world, and I think people like Vanessa have a big part to play in educating parents.
Definitely.
Because the parents they're also anxious people, you know, and when they also want the best for their children, and they think this is the way to go. And when A, B, and C, they say our child is reading, our child can identify 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then they get anxious. So then the stress goes on to the early childhood educators. So it's a vicious cycle. So we need to actually, a lot of awareness has to happen.
Nirmali, don't you think we need more awareness on early childhood education, let's say from the time, I would say A-levels? Because it's very important for boys and girls to understand not just the sexual part, the sexual part, but where the responsibility of good parenting is. Because if we are going to be good parents, you don't have to be a teetotaler or a non-smoker, or, that is not what it is. Lots of parents say, oh, I don't drink, I don't smoke, but that is not what a good parent is. A good parent should be in a position to understand the child he has been or she has been blessed with. And whether the child has autism or Down syndrome or whatever, cerebral palsy sometimes, it is important for us to understand that the parent has to be accepted into society. And we have ostracized lots of people, saying, sometimes I wonder whether we are still in the 15th or 16th centuries, because we're talking about, oh, it's a karme, or it's a karume, or whatever. What is that? It's not a karume, So we need to get past this boulder. It's a huge boulder. We need to get past this with awareness. And I don't know. Chokolaate is a very new a magazine that works with teenagers. I think you guys have a lot of things to do where social understanding and social interaction is important. Club hopping is fine, and going to places and having good times. That's part of being teenagers. We understand that. But once you pass that stage, you are an adult. You are a responsible adult. You are a responsible citizen of this country. And if you are going to put poison into your system, you are going to have children with lots of dysfunctions. And I am talking about nutrition. Unfortunately, we don't have a medical person here, but nutrition plays a huge part. Look at the poisons we are feeding our kids. And parents are saying, oh, they can't function without it. Of course they can function without it. We functioned. I don't know, Nirmali, did you come out of a cornflake box or something like that? I didn't. I definitely didn't. I just had 3 curries on the table and my mom said, eat, and we ate. And that was it till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Yes. No, Mataval gahanna ba. So it's important for children to understand that they have good role models. When they don't have role models, this breakup happens. The parent who doesn't talk to another parent, the parent who is separated or divorced or on the brink of separation. We haven't even touched on those psychological issues that the under fives are going through. We're not talking about teenagers here, we're talking about under 5s. And this is the stress that parents are bringing to the table. When they sit at the table and they don't talk to their children and they get up with the plate, or someone leaves the plate and you have to collect the plate and wash, and you grumble at the tap. The child is seeing this. The child is understanding, something is not right here. I mean, we can't say that the children don't understand. Of course they understand. They understand every nuance that the mother and the father and the grandparents that they go through. So I think it's important that I don't know. I'm just this is a huge chalkboard here. So Chokolaate would want to take this forward and have more dialogue with young people and bring on new people as well to make people realize that early childhood is the backbone of the country. You don't wake up one day, have a child and send him to university, do you? I mean, that wouldn't be the reality. It has to start at preschool. And you can't go to grade 1. I mean, you can go to grade 1. There are some parents who are successfully homeschooling their children at preschool. I don't know whether it works or does not work, or whether it's good or bad, but it is being done. And now with this COVID-19 situation, parents are homeschooling their kids whether we like it or not. And they're saying we are going crazy. Why are they going crazy? They're their kids. We work with them every day. We don't go crazy with kids. Kids don't put that into an adult. It's the adult's frame of mind that brings on the stress levels, or it escalates the stress levels, so that then the parent loses control. Like Nirmali said, you're shouting at each other. We are a shouting nation, aren't we? Anyway, we can't sit down and talk. We have to shout at each other. Look what's going on around us. So children are seeing and they are experiencing lots of violence. We have to understand this is not just in our own cocoons. Outside, when your children go and interact with other people's children, it's not the ideal setting that they're going to. They're going from a violent home, and they're creating violence as well. When I say violent, I really mean violent. Grade 1, grade 2, some kids are coming home with torn shirts and torn buttons, and I have to say this, bitten ears sometimes. Isn't that violent? Doesn't that sound violent to you? And so one or two children have said, Vanessa is shaking her head, so I think she has experienced this. One of the kids have said, "Oyage le rasai." Nalika, are you shocked?
Nalika, you can add in something to that as well.
Well, yes, it's quite confronting to hear it, but I can imagine it happening, because
Yes,
when a
it
kid
does
sees
happen.
violence around them, they normalize it, right?
Yes.
So for a kid who sees violence, or sees that violence at home or around them, then for them it's normal. It's their normal.
One of those things.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. And we need to break this. And I would like for Nirmali, because you're such a frontliner in this field, and Vanessa and Nalika and all your contemporaries out there, to think of early childhood as a very special time where we can support parents. We support children anyway, but I think parents need that extra support, because they are getting things from Google and they are getting it all, it's a huge doodle out there. Because when you go to a site, that site doesn't tell you about your child, does it? It tells you about a case study. It tells you a black and white thesis of someone who's done a study. It is not your child. Your child is very special, very unique, with your traits and your characteristics and your personality. So he's not a textbook case. The textbook case is for us, for educators, for parents to learn, for researchers. So my one thing is, if you want to find out whether your child has autism or whatever, don't Google it. Vanessa, what do you say? Don't Google it. You just go to the source and get the information from the source. Work with people like us so that you can be helped. Counseling is a huge dead area in this country. It is something that we think, it's like you're all screwed up, so that is why you're going to a counselor. No, you're going to a counselor because you want help. You don't want to continue to live in a screwed up system. So I think every early childhood educator, every principal, every school person, every head of school should have the counseling aspect. Not just to say, oh, we have a school counselor. We have to have the heart. Counseling is the huge part of counseling is actually listening. But we, in Sri Lanka, when you go for counseling, people tell me, oh, she told me to do this, he told me to do this. No, we don't give instructions. That is for you to do. That is for you to find out. We have to, counseling is a listening activity. It's a listening, it's a therapy where parents have to just unload and the counselor sits and understands the situation. So that is why counseling has become such a, I don't know, a dirty word, probably, I'm not sure. But it's not something that is very well sought after. People come for counseling to get a band-aid, a little plaster, sticking plaster somewhere, so that, you know, things, no, it takes years sometimes. It takes months and years for someone to get help, because to open up to a third person, we are not very good at that. We are good with friends, right? We can have a drink and have a coffee somewhere and pour our hearts out to friends. But you go for counseling, my gosh, she's going for counseling. That's a terrible thing. So the way we portray counseling in early childhood, the way we portray early childhood per se, has to be on a different level. I don't know, I'm challenging Chokolaate.
That's good. That's we accept the challenge. But because you brought that up, actually, we have been conducting a lot of webinars and Insta Live sessions regarding, you know, topics with which stigma is associated. We have a special program going on called Behind the Mask as well, where we speak about certain, you know, mental issues that people go through. Yeah, I think we have something coming up this month as well. So yeah. We have one question that has come to us, Mrs. Wijesinghe, because you brought up violence into this. There's someone who wants to know, is it because of violence at home that there is bullying at school too? Vanessa, you could also join in because you're a psychologist as well. So I'll repeat the question once again. Is it because of violence at home that there is bullying at school?
Once again, home means, I mean, two parents can be calm and peaceful, but the choices of programs on TV can be very violent. The person next door can be violent. If there's a construction site next door to your home, people from there can be violent. They can be having violent speech. And you know how violent our people gets after a drink at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the evening after they finish their work on a construction site or on a home site. So this is what the children are picking up. See, children are like sponges. I don't have to tell you this, but I have to repeat that. They're like blotting paper. They soak up everything, good, bad, ugly. So the home can be the most peaceful home, but the home environment, you're outside, can be part of that environment as well. So the child who's listening to it, maybe the parents don't talk anything that is unruly or out of line, but the child goes to school and says things that are so shocking that everyone around is saying, where did that come from? My gosh, the parents must be talking like that. Immediately, they have sealed it and said the parents must be talking like. It cannot be 100%. We don't know. But if they see violence, if they experience violence on TV, on devices, you give your child devices and you say things like, oh, he's very clever, he can do this touch stuff.
Right. Okay.
So whatever happens at home within those four walls is not the only thing. It's the outside elements as well. I would say watch any teledrama. I'm not saying Indian or Sri Lankan or what. Watch any teledrama and see how much violence, how many violent words they speak, what violent actions they portray. Are these for children? Should children be watching it with their grandparents or their parents? Should children be sitting and watching it with their domestics and discussing it? That's how violence becomes part of you. And then the portrayal, even on the next day, it's amazing. The child is not the child anymore. He is the actor. He has taken on another role. He is role playing because he wants to experience it. And if he goes and if he hits another child, do we want to call him violent? Are we saying he's a violent child? Where did that violence come from? From our own backgrounds, from our own backyard, from our own homes. Because we may be the most non-violent people, the two people on earth. We may be the two most non-violent couple on earth. But if the child, sorry, that's my dog. But if the child is saying, I saw this. So when we talk to children, we say, how did you learn that? Where did you, because that uncle says it. Which uncle? Okay, we got that now. So we can't really say violence comes from home. But if parents, grandparents, if they're staying together, I don't like this in-law factor thing, but children are subject to it at some point, where the mother-in-law does not get on with the daughter-in-law, the other in-law does not get on with this in-law. When you stay in extended families, this happens. We do it for economic reasons sometimes. And so the child is imbibing, is getting all that into him. He's too small to express it in his own words. He comes to school and he has a field day. So we have to be very alert that violence does not actually sometimes happen at home, but in our environments.
All right, okay. Thank you very much, Mrs. Wijesinghe, and I hope we answered your question. Okay, so I think we'll start wrapping up things because we planned this webinar for 1.5 hours. It's almost 7:30 right now. Before we end things for today, I'd like to get a final message from all our panelists here. Mrs. Wickremasinghe, if you could take the lead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
As we all, I think, agreed, I think it's important that both teachers and parents understand what early childhood is all about. Because it is very, very important that people understand that it is not a period where you have to pour in numbers and letters, reading and writing and maths concepts, but it's a period of discovery, of observation, of understanding that you need to love, that you need to feel for others, that you need to feel for animals, where a child grows up confident in what he or she is, where she's exposed to a lot of love and understanding. And I mean, children are children, so they will throw tantrums, they will do things they shouldn't do, but the adults cannot also become children. It's very important that parents and teachers don't become early childhood people themselves, but that they also don't start throwing tantrums, that children have a peaceful environment around them where they grow and understand themselves, where I think most important that teachers and parents help children to respect themselves and learn and teach them to have not teach them, but for them to automatically have a good opinion of themselves, where their self-esteem is cultivated and their observation skills and their love for their environment and their fellow beings is inculcated in them.
Okay, thank you very much. Nalika, what about you? What's your final message?
My message to parents is to get digitally savvy yourselves. I think we've been talking about, our kids being a step ahead of us when it comes to devices, right? And just being online. And a lot of parents, including myself, were left behind. We have no idea what they're up to in this vast digital space, right? And but everything that used to happen in real life, and even worse, still happens. Online bullying happens. And pedophilia exists online, and it's even worse because it happens without our knowledge. They're sneaking up on our kids. So my message is, get savvy, know what your kids are doing online. There are games, even innocent YouTube channels like Peppa Pig, right? There are people who infiltrate those. They dub whatever Peppa says with filth or with various, horrible messages. And without your knowledge, your kids are absorbing that because you think, oh, she's only watching Peppa. And this has happened, this has happened. There are actual examples of this happening. And of course, as the child grows older, then they go into video games, they go into various, this virtual world where they're interacting with strangers from around the world, right? And they're online. So just understand what your kid is doing. And I think most importantly, it's teaching your child that, devices, the internet is a tool. It shouldn't be ruling their lives. It shouldn't be teaching them how to think. And don't make the mistake that we made by, by completely banning screen time. Give your child screen time with limitations and with supervision and with controls set in place, and also with the understanding, your child needs to have the understanding that there are certain rules in place and that he or she can do certain things and he or she should not be doing certain things, right? If you have, if your child must be on a laptop or a computer, or if your child needs to have a phone, make sure that the child is in a space where you can check once in a while, especially if the kid is younger. And when you have that, when you build up that level of trust as well, and when you understand, when you know that your child now knows how to navigate this space in a careful way, then I think as your child grows older, and as you need to give your child more independence, and you can't be breathing down his or her neck or hovering over, him or her, looking into his screen and messages, you can rest assured that your child will know how to act responsibly online. I think that's my message today to parents.
Thank you. Vanessa, what about you?
So my message to parents is don't underestimate the investments you put in your child, right? Because what you invest in a child during early childhood is what they will carry on to their adulthood. So make sure that you have an enriching environment, right? An environment that fosters love, care, and an environment that would nourish the child. But at the same time, also bear in mind that children do imitate, and you have to be very careful and to be watchful of their outside influence. And I think as parents, they have quite a difficult and a huge responsibility in their hands. So don't ever underestimate what your child can learn, what your child picks up from the environment, and always remember that it is key that you provide an enriching environment so that optimal development will take place.
Thank you, Vanessa. What about you, Mrs. Wijesinghe? What's your final message?
For me, the important thing is if parents know to build the value system, take responsibility for their actions. If a child does something wrong, don't try to cover it up. If the child has not done his homework, I'm talking about an older child here, say 7 or 8, don't try to say things like, oh, he had a late night, or, he was tired, or we are all tired. We're all tired people. Everyone is tired. Children get tired, adults get tired, professionals get tired. Tiredness is part of life. We need to understand that. So, no denying a child the truth. If you haven't done your homework, you tell the teacher, I'm sorry I didn't do the homework. So you take the responsibility, or you go for the class a little late and say, I'm sorry, I didn't do the homework, but I've come and I haven't finished the homework. That is far better than the mother or the father taking the hand of the child and saying, don't scold him in front of the child. This is something that I have continuously been baffled and amazed, that we don't have our value system of taking responsibility for the child taking responsibility for his actions, the parent taking responsibility for his actions or her actions. Because a child is not an extension of a parent. It's not an extra hand or a leg. It is an individual with individual needs and individual mindset. So we need to fashion it, and we need to bring out the gem within. Because each one who is born into this world is a rough cut gem. We need to fashion it. We as educators, as parents, as society, as media, as anyone in society, even neighborhoods, should be able to fashion the child. I think generations ago, I'm sure Nirmali would understand what I'm trying to say. I think in your time, in my time, if my child was corrected by my sister, I'm talking about living in extended families, I wouldn't tell my sister, mind your business, this is my child. But in today's context, if a child was to be corrected by my sister, I would take offense. I would take offense and say, mind your business. This is where we have gone wrong. This is my take of where we have gone wrong, because grandmothers can correct their children, their grandchildren. Parents should be in a position to correct their children. Neighbors should be in a position to correct their children, to the outside children. Society is very cruel out there, in case anyone has noticed. They're not going to make excuses for your child. You can cocoon your child in your home, definitely. Maybe up to O levels or A levels. After that, what? Are you going with him to Australia or to any other country and going to be mollycoddling him or her? No, you're going to let him or her fly, right? But how? So these are the core values of early childhood, of human relationships that are very important to build that human being. And that is my message. Parents have to understand how to build their child to a country that is so beautiful to live in. We need to understand that we live in a beautiful country. Other countries are beautiful too, but if we don't value our own country, if we are not loyal to our own country, if we are telling children, okay, this is not the country you should live in, you should go somewhere else, and you should just take whatever you want from this country and go somewhere else, we are not having those core values within us, and we are putting that poison into our children just like we put poisonous food into them. So mind, body, both have to be totally in sync. That's my message.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Wijesinghe, for that. I know we can go on talking about these issues, but unfortunately, we'll have to put a stop for today's webinar. There's actually one of our viewers who have asked if there will be a continuation of this webinar.
I hope so.
I think so. Maybe seekers can get together with Chokolaate once again and organize maybe a second episode to this webinar. I think people who have been watching us so far have been enjoying it and have been taking tips and learning a lot of things. So thank you very much to our panelists. Thank you very much, Mrs. Nirmali Wickremasinghe. Thank you very much, Nalika, Vanessa, and also Mrs. Wijesinghe. Thank you so much for joining in with us today and sparing your time for this webinar and, um, giving us a very good discussion about the topic of early childhood education. So that's all from my side as well. Once again, thank you very much to all the panelists, and also thank you very much to our audience. Thank you for joining in with us. If possible, we will get another webinar done very soon. So just stay, yeah, I'm sorry, I just got distracted. I got another comment. I'll read it out because I think the panelists should hear it. It was a compliment to all the panelists. So it says, thank you to all the panelists, excellent advice. So I think all of you should hear it as
Thank
well.
you.
All right, okay, so
you.
that's
Nice
it for
meeting all
today.
of you, Nalika and Vanessa and Nirmali, although I've never met you in person. Nalika, I think I know your name from somewhere. And of course, Nirmali, you are a famous person. So thank you, Radha. Thank you very much for putting this together. And we hope we can do this again sometime soon. Good
Thank
night.
you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nalika, I might see you in school.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Nirmali.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.